Ishmael Chapter 9, Sections 1, 2, and 3. When I arrived the next day, I found that a new plan was in effect. Ishmael was no longer on the other side of the glass, he was on my side of it, sprawled on some cushions a few feet from my chair. I hadn't realized how important that sheet of glass had become to our relationship. To be honest, I felt a flutter of alarm in my stomach. His nearness and enormity disconcerted me. But without hesitating for more than a fraction of a second, I took my seat and gave him my usual nod of greeting. He nodded back, but I thought I glimpsed a look of wary speculation in his eyes, as if my proximity troubled him as much as his troubled me. "Before we go on," Ishmael said after a few moments, "I want to clear up a misconception." He held up a pad of drawing paper with a diagram on it. Not a particularly difficult visualization. It represents the storyline of the levers, he said. "Yes, I see." He added something and held it up again. This offshoot, beginning about 8000 BC, represents the storyline of the takers. Right. And what event does this represent? He asked, touching the point of his pencil to the dot labeled 8000 BC. The agricultural revolution. Did this event occur at a point in time or over a period of time? I assume over a period of time. Then this dot at 8000 BC represents what? The beginning of the revolution. Where shall we put the dot that to show when it ended? I said witlessly, I don't really know. It must have lasted a couple thousand years. What event marked the end of the revolution? Again, I don't know. I don't know that any particular event would have marked it. No popping champagne corks? I don't know. Think. I thought, and after a while said, okay, it's strange that this isn't taught. I remember being taught about the agricultural revolution, but I don't remember this. Go on. It didn't end. It just spread. It's been spreading ever since it began back there 10,000 years ago. It spread across this continent during the 18th and 19th centuries. It's still spreading across parts of New Zealand and Africa and South America today. Of course. So you see that your agricultural revolution is not an event like the Trojan War, isolated in the distant past and without direct relevance to your lives today. The work begun by those Neolithic farmers in the Near East has been carried forward from one generation to the next without a single break, right into the present moment. It's the foundation of your vast civilization today in exactly the same way that it was the foundation of your very first farming village. Yes, I see that. This should help you understand why the story you tell your children about the meaning of the world, about divine intentions in the world, and about the destiny of man is of such profound importance to the people of your culture. It's the manifesto of the revolution on which your culture is based. It's the repository of all your revolutionary doctrine and the definitive expression of your revolutionary spirit. It explains why the revolution was necessary and why it must be carried forward at any cost whatever. Yes, I said, that's quite a thought. About 2,000 years ago, Ishmael went on, an event of exquisite irony occurred within your culture. The takers, or at least a very large segment of them, adopted as their own a story that seemed to them pregnant with meaning and mystery. It came to them from a taker people of the Near East who had been telling it to their own children for countless generations. For so many generations that it had become a mystery even to them. Do you know why? Why it had become a mystery? No. It had become a mystery because those who first told the story, their ancient ancestors, were not takers, but levers. I sat there for a while blinking at him. Then I asked him if he'd mind running that past me again. About 2,000 years ago, the takers adopted as their own a story that had originated among levers many centuries before. Okay, what's the irony in that? The irony is that it was a story that had been once told among levers about the origins of the takers. So, the takers adopted as their own a lever story about their origins. I'm afraid I just don't get it. What sort of story would a lever people tell about the appearance of the takers in the world? God, I have no idea. Ishmael peered at me owlishly. You seem to have forgotten to take your brainy pill this morning. Never mind. I'll tell you my story of my own, and then you'll see it. Okay. Ishmael shifted his mountainous bulk into a new position on his pillows, and involuntarily I closed my eyes, thinking, if a stranger were to open the door and walk in at this moment, what on earth would he think? There's a very special knowledge you must have if you're going to rule the world, Ishmael said. I'm sure you realize that. Frankly, I've never thought about it. The takers possess this knowledge, of course, at least they imagine they do, and they're very, very proud of it. This is the most fundamental knowledge of all, and it's absolutely indispensable to those who would rule the world. And what do you suppose the takers find when they go among the leavers? I don't know what you mean. They find that the leavers do not have this knowledge. Isn't that remarkable? I don't know. Consider it. The takers have a knowledge that enables them to rule the world, and the leavers lack it. This is what the missionaries found whenever they went among the leavers. They were quite astonished themselves because they had the impression that this knowledge was virtually self-evident. I don't even know what knowledge you're talking about. It's the knowledge that's needed to rule the world. Okay, but specifically what knowledge is that? You'll learn that from the story. What I'm looking at right now is who has this knowledge. I've told you that the takers have it, and that makes sense, doesn't it? The takers are the rulers of the world, aren't they? Yes. And the leavers don't have it. And that too makes sense, doesn't it? I guess so. Now tell me this. Who else would have this knowledge besides the takers? I have no idea. Think mythologically. Okay, the gods would have it. Of course. And that's what my story is about. How the gods acquired the knowledge they needed to rule the world.